pecan or buttermilk pancakes, plus 2 eggs with bacon or sausage. Believe it or not, the Believe It or Not's breakfast.
Oh, Mark, Lisa, let me introduce you to my son, Tommy, and his friends. Hi, kids.
Hi there. Wow, your dad really does work for Action News. Someday I will, too.
I watch you guys on Action News at 5 every day.
Me, too. Action News is cool.
Cool? Yeah, awesome.
As a matter of fact, I've been watching you guys since I was just a kid. Watch Action News at 5 with Mark Howard, Lisa Thomas Laurie, Dave Roberts, and Scott Palmer. And someday, me.
Watch the Sunday Showcase of Home, Sunday at 9:30.
Good morning, everyone. In the headlines, Philadelphia is launching its celebration of the 200th anniversary of the U.S. Constitution.
I'm standing near the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia, but it's my weather map that's half cracked today.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Charles Gibson, and a little fife and drum music is appropriate this morning. Kathleen Sullivan is still ill, unfortunately, not with us today, and it is a shame because we are in Philadelphia. The date, Thursday, September 17th, 1987, and we are standing just about on the spot where it was all happening 200 years ago today, September 17th, 1787. We are here on Independence, near Independence Hall, where 55 delegates to the Constitutional Convention spent 4 months in the hot summer of 1787 in Assembly Hall negotiating the document that has provided the basis for our government for over 200, or for just now, 200 years. And Philadelphia will be celebrating all day long. There is going to be a gigantic parade with 20,000 people in it. There'll be a huge picnic down on the Philadelphia riverfront. There's going to be a gala with dozens of stars, and of course, as seems fitting on these occasions now, a giant fireworks show at the end of the day. And we will be helping Philadelphia celebrate during the day. You'll meet many of the people who are involved in the festivities. In this half hour, we will have a report on what Philadelphia was like 200 years ago. I should squelch any rumors. Joel Siegel was not there, but he has researched the subject and will have a report. You'll also be meeting the former Chief Justice, Warren Burger, who is the chairman of the Constitutional Bicentennial Commission. He'll be here to talk about what's going on and what it all means. Also in this 2 hours, you will be meeting some of the stars involved in the gala. You will meet some of the descendants of the signers of the Constitution. Later on, Mr. Philadelphia 1987, Julius Erving. And throughout our program, our legal expert, Arthur Miller, will have reports on what it was like inside that hall 200 years ago. Right now, we're going down to Washington, though, where Jed Duval has the news. Jed, good morning.
Good morning, Charlie. Good morning, everyone. Pope John Paul has delivered a stern message to American Catholics. In Los Angeles yesterday, the Pope told Catholic bishops that Americans may not disobey the teachings of the Church and still be good Catholics. As Ken Kashwahar reports, John Paul carries this theme today to San Francisco.
In the city of St. Francis, Pope John Paul will come face to face with the extremes of America's homosexuals. From the antics of the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence to more conventional demonstrations, gays plan to protest the Church's condemnation of homosexuality.
We are going to exercise our holy, if you will, holy First Amendment rights to tell the world how we feel about this Pope.
Earlier this week, one gay theologian burned a copy of the Vatican's pastoral letter, which calls homosexuality an intrinsic moral evil.
This spills over into lesbian and gay homophobia, violence and killings and maimings in the street, and this is the Church as oppressor.
But not all gays plan to confront the Pope. The gay Catholic group called Dignity will hold an alternative mass. And while some gay groups demonstrate outside Mission Dolores, inside, the Pope, for the first time, will meet victims of AIDS, gays who hope it will be a symbolic statement.
I'd like him to hug an AIDS patient. I would just like to see him take somebody in the arm and say, I love you.
We are members of his family who are suffering, and many of us are dying. How could you not, again, see a member of your family and not have some compassion?
So the Pope will receive two different messages from the gay community in two different ways. One protesting the Church's stand on homosexuality, the other calling for compassion for AIDS patients. Ken Kashiwahara, ABC News, San Francisco.
Delaware Senator Joseph Biden, who's chairing the committee scrutinizing Supreme Court nominee Robert Bork, is himself under scrutiny. Biden is holding a news conference this morning to answer charges that he's used uncredited material from other politicians' speeches and that he was caught plagiarizing while in law school. After that, Biden is due back in the hearings, where Bork is back for a third day. Yesterday, Bork backed away from previous positions on the limitations of free speech and women's rights. That provoked skepticism from some panel Democrats who wondered aloud if Bork's changes of heart were conveniently timed for the hearings. More from Britt Hume.
Bork is portraying himself as an intellectual who took sometimes extreme views as an academic, but who has taken a much more cautious approach in government service.
As Solicitor General, I carried out my duties in not a speculative or extreme fashion at all. And as a judge on the Court of Appeals, I think I have not been extreme in any way.
There were questions about his criticisms of laws and court decisions supporting the rights of blacks. One of his supporters put the question bluntly.
How does it feel to be accused in front of your family and in front of tens of millions of your fellow citizens of being a racist?
Well, it doesn't feel too good, but my family knows better, and anybody who knows me knows better.
Are you a racist?
No, Senator.
He was also questioned closely about the firing at President Nixon's order of Watergate Special Prosecutor Archibald Cox 14 years ago, an act Bork carried out when Attorney General Richardson refused and resigned. But Bork said Richardson urged him to carry out the president's order.
So he encouraged you, if it was within your own judgment to do so, he encouraged you to comply with the order and not resign.
That's right.
There may be more on that issue from other witnesses, but there is no sign now the Cox firing will prove a barrier to Bork's confirmation. Britt Hume, ABC News on Capitol Hill.
Both Moscow and Washington are increasingly upbeat now about the possibility of an arms agreement. Secretary of State Schultz and Soviet Foreign Minister Shevardnadze say they've made progress on an agreement to eliminate medium and short-range missiles. 3 days of talks here in Washington wind up today. And the Fed is making a new proposal that has savings and loan institutions concerned. Stephen Ogg with details.
Good morning. The Federal Reserve Board, in a major change in policy, has proposed new rules that would allow firms that own commercial banks to buy healthy savings and loans. Now, for the past 10 years, they could buy only those S&Ls that were in poor shape. The reasons for the change include an increase in interstate banking agreements that permit banks and savings and loans to spread across many state lines even now, and the continuing move toward less regulation. S&L officials, though, are furious. They say if big banks are allowed to buy healthy savings and loans, who'll buy those that need to be rescued? That, they say, means a bigger drain on the S&L insurance fund. Meanwhile, the House has passed a bill to restrict textile imports. The vote last night was 263 to 156. That's not enough to override an expected presidential veto. Undersecretary of Commerce Bruce Smart said the vote showed little support for import restrictions. The industry says it'll gain more votes before any presidential veto. The bill now goes to the Senate. Meanwhile, on Wall Street, prices open against another downer. The Dow fell more than 36 points yesterday. Blame worries over the dollar and interest rates. Finally, Hershey Foods introducing its first new chocolate bar in 4 years. It's called Bar None, and it's aimed at adults who simply like chocolate. Hershey's last new bar was called Score, introduced in 1983. Hershey considers Score a success, but it's certainly not one of the top 10 candy bars. So the question is the extent to which Score really did. It's the economy this morning.
Checking the foreign exchanges in London against yesterday's closings in New York, the dollar is up against the Japanese yen, the dollar is down against the West German markets, up against the French franc, and it's unchanged against the British pound. The morning gold fixing in London up $1 an ounce from yesterday's close in New York. That's our news, and now here's Spencer at the Liberty Bell.
That is correct, Jed, standing right next to the Liberty Bell, crack and all, as we celebrate the bicentennial of the nation's Constitution. But first, let's take a look at today's weather, starting with the jet stream, which is trying to adjust itself now for the coming of autumn. You see a dip down there from the northwest, a cool air spilling in behind the flow there. Still hot way down in the south, and it's damp up in the northeast today as the outlook calls for showers and thunderstorms over a large area from the Great Lakes down to the Gulf Coast and reaching towards the North Atlantic. Most of the western part of the nation is clear and dry, except for an area over Colorado and Wyoming, showing where there's mixed precipitation, some snow and some rain. That's a look at the national weather, and here's what's happening in your hometown area.
The Constitution Day forecast for the Delaware Valley calls for variable cloudiness with a shower this morning. This afternoon, clouds with some sunshine. It'll be warm and humid, and there's a chance of a thunderstorm. 72 degrees right now. Today's high, 82.
Joining me right now is a historic figure you may recognize, Ben Franklin. Ben, thanks for getting up so early this morning to join us.
Well, early to bed and early to rise, you know, makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise.
I think I've heard that somewhere before. This is a very cloudy day, Ben. It's kind of messy here in Philadelphia.
Well, I like a little thunderstorm now and then, you know.
I've heard that. You are the first weatherman, I think, in the nation's history, but instead of using a barometer and radar, you used a kite. Is that correct?
Yes, you probably find that shocking.
Oh, I get a charge out of that. Well, Ben, thank you very much for being with us this morning, and I hope things go well as you preserve history for us. And right now, we're going to discover that Ben Franklin wasn't the only founding father who enjoyed the city of Philadelphia. As Joel Siegel reports, the Philly of 200 years ago was the place to be.
George Washington lived just across the street. Alexander Hamilton down the block. James Madison stayed here at the corner of 5th and Market. And when he set foot on this street on that morning exactly 200 years ago today, he was greeted by the metropolis of America. Because William Penn remembered the fire of London, he insisted his city be made of brick. That's why Old Philadelphia was so beautiful, why so much of Old Philadelphia still stands today. Dr. Rush's hospital still stands. One of the world's leading physicians, his wonder cure was leeches, which he recommended for almost every disease. Hoop skirts and bustles were in that year, and high-swept hairdos held in place with whipped cream. Captain Bligh set sail on the Bounty in 1787. That year, Richard Allen and Absalom Jones established the AME Church and founded the Free African Society in Philadelphia. On High Street, it's Market Street today, everything was for sale, including livestock, live livestock. And a great Philadelphia treat Madison would popularize when he married a Philadelphia belle named Dolly and took her to the White House. Ice cream. It was a short walk for Madison to Independence Hall, which wasn't called Independence Hall then. Just 11 years before, many of these same men had created the Declaration of Independence. We'd won the Revolution, but the new United States of America barely hung on by a thread. Governed by something called the Articles of Confederation, the federal government was so weak, states printed their own money. The militia had to put down a rebellion in Massachusetts. When Virginia and Maryland almost went to war over oyster rights in Chesapeake Bay, Congress appointed a committee to revise the Articles of Confederation. That's what these men were doing here in Philadelphia 200 years ago today, or what they were supposed to be doing. Windows closed, sentries at the door, they set about creating a new government. The first order of business was easy. George Washington was elected presiding officer. Then came the hard part, everything else. It was Madison, short, slight, soft-spoken, who understood the states needed a strong central government based on the people's votes. Patterson of New Jersey led the small states. Each state has one vote. Why give up power? To survive, Ben Franklin suggested. Ben Franklin, frail and ill at 81, never missed a session or a chance to urge compromise. Pennsylvania's Jared Ingersoll attended every session, never said a word. Connecticut's Oliver Ellsworth would talk to himself, loudly. Luther Martin's nickname was Brandy Bottle. When delegates had to stand to be counted, he couldn't be counted on to be able to stand. And Madison mused if men were angels, they would need no government. They voted 60 times on how to select a president. This is the room they worked in, and I don't know how they did it. It was hot that summer. They worked with the windows closed. Just like in the pictures, the men actually wore these heavy wool coats. When in desperation they opened the windows, black flies descended like locusts. At night, the flies went away. The mosquitoes came. I wonder why Ben Franklin never invented the screen. One Philadelphian actually hung a hornet's nest from the bottom of his chandelier. His theory, the hornets would eat the flies and mosquitoes, and he'd take his chances with the hornets. But maybe the discomfort aided the cause of compromise. They ended up with a document nobody liked all of. Gerry of Massachusetts refused to sign it. The small states had too much power. Virginia's Mason wouldn't sign, not without a Bill of Rights. Franklin felt it cheated democracy. He signed because he doubted anyone could do better. Hamilton feared it wasn't aristocratic enough, but he signed too. And Washington wrote Patrick Henry, "I wish it had been more perfect, but I sincerely believe it's the best that can be obtained." It wasn't perfect, it was a compromise. It wasn't an end, it was a beginning. But what was revolutionary about what the men in this room did exactly 200 years ago were the three words printed so large even Franklin could read them without his bifocals. We, the people. The delegates signed the Constitution by state using that inkwell geographically from north to south, from New Hampshire to Georgia. After the signing, Franklin said he'd wondered from the beginning whether the sun on the back of Washington's chair, and that was Washington's chair, was a rising sun or a setting sun. Now he said, I have the happiness to know it's a rising sun. And today, 200 years later, we pray it's rising still.
Thank you very much, Joel. It is now 15 minutes after the hour, and the former Chief Justice, Warren Burger, with his thoughts on the Constitution in just a moment.
Presenting a delicious new reason not to cook. It's Holly Farms oven roasted chicken. It's already cooked. Try it for the no, it's your turn to cook reason. Perfection. Or the I'm late but it's not my fault reason. Yes, the best reason to serve new Holly Farms oven roasted chicken is the taste. But there's always the a little something wonderful just turned up reason. New Holly Farms oven roasted chicken. A delicious new reason not to cook.
Come to Shop and Bag and experience the freshness and experience savings like these. America's favorite Tropicana orange juice, home-style or regular, only $1.29 for a big 64-ounce carton. And your choice of assorted Quaker rice cakes, would you believe, only 49 cents a package with coupon. And also from Quaker, chewy granola bars, assorted flavors, only $1.39. And always remember to experience the freshness.
Experience Shop and Bag.
I just sold an Isuzu iMark. Wah! To the Queen. It's roomy enough for a king or a queen if that's all you got. There's air conditioning so Her Highness won't sweat, and a stereo to drown out the cries of the peasants. Prices start at £7, 9 ounces, but I traded one to what's-her-name for this hat. Right, that does it! Ta-ta!
Now, factory-to-dealer incentives could mean big savings on all Isuzus.
Union Lake. Nobody plays here anymore. It's poisoned with arsenic. The owner paid State Senator Jim Hurley $10,000 for helping sell the lake to the state of New Jersey. Hurley kept the $10,000 and left us with a poisoned lake. Hurley had a choice, $10,000 or our health. Now we have a choice, Hurley or someone we can trust, Don Rainier for State Senate.
Cameras or tapes to record the proceedings of this very first constitutional debate here in Independence Hall's assembly room. There was only James Madison, a shy Virginian described as being no bigger than half a bar of soap. For 6 hours of debate each day and 3 more hours each evening, Madison labored over his shorthand notes of the proceedings, preserving for history the arguments, the debates, the very thought process that created the Constitution. Even today, when arguments arise as to the original intent of the Constitution, legal scholars turn most often to the words scratched out here on the convention floor by James Madison.
Thank you, Arthur Miller, and he'll be back with more such looks at what it was like 200 years ago today later on in the broadcast. Today is a truly special day for the former Chief Justice, Warren Burger. He is now the chairman of the Constitutional Bicentennial Commission, and I talked with him earlier this week in Washington, outside the Capitol. In a nutshell, why is this document so unique?
That'll take a little more than one short sentence to answer that. It was unique because of the separation of powers first, and then in its operations, it released the energies, unleashed the energies and the native talents of every human being to develop himself or herself according to their own industry and their own talent.
The dreamers and the philosophers had talked about it and written about it in France and England and Scotland and even back to the earlier philosophers in Greece. But nobody had ever tried it out before, the concept of separation of powers, checks and balances, one branch to check the other. Not on the scale that we did. And then the remarkable thing is that it worked.
Was there ever an instance prior to that where there had been a government formed on the concept that the public gave the authority to the government, as opposed to the power of government giving the authority to people?
Just one, and it was on the shipboard when they drafted the articles on Plymouth Rock. There were only 104 people, and 41 of them signed the Mayflower Compact. That was the first time that the concept of we the people was expressed. And the Constitution built on that.
Under the rubric, under the aegis of the Constitution, there have been an enormous number of disgraceful things, I guess, in American history. Slavery, internment camps, there are other examples. Why?
The essence of it is that they couldn't do it all at once, or they thought they couldn't. And most historians agree that if they had tried to deal with the slavery problem at Philadelphia in 1787, probably half of the states would have walked out, and the whole thing would have fallen apart. The Northerners and a lot of the Southerners wanted to abolish slavery. But remember, Thomas Jefferson had 300 or 350 slaves, and his whole existence depended on it. The Southern economy depended on it, and like a lot of things, you don't get away from it overnight. One of the delegates wrote home after the convention and said it was done by bargain and compromise, but at least we got something started. And that's about the way you have to look at the original Constitution.
As a justice, Chief Justice, was there anything that the Constitution didn't address?
There are parts of the Bill of Rights which could have been made more explicit and more clear, because the Bill of Rights did not undergo the same kind of debate and discussion that the main body of the Constitution did.
You mentioned that this observance goes on for a number of years. What do you
1991.
What do you hope comes out of it?
Well, basically, a better understanding of it. What we want to do now is focus on the ratification processes. Most people don't realize that we almost didn't get this Constitution.
There has been the specter in all of this, of the Supreme Court Justice, however, working with school groups, negotiating for space in the funny papers to publicize the Constitution, getting placemats, fast food restaurants. Does that feel comfortable to you?
The McDonald placemats are an educational process, and school teachers are going to use them this fall in their teaching process. Because with illustrations and with stories, they've done an excellent piece of work, more than just awareness. It's communicating ideas.
You have worked a long time toward the events of this week, and coincidentally, your 80th birthday comes on the 200th birthday of the Constitution. I guess happy birthday due to both of you, is it?
Just so you get it clear that I'm not as old as the Constitution, anyway.
Indeed, he is not. He is 120 years younger than the Constitution is today, the former Chief Justice, Warren Burger. It is now coming up on 23 minutes after the hour. In our next half hour, when we come back, you will meet Mr. Philadelphia 1987, Julius Erving and his wife Turquoise. Stay with us.
Macy's has savings designed with you in mind. A $2,000 Chesterfield leather sofa, now $999. Handmade Chinese 100% wool rugs, $399. 50% off a huge assortment of bedding. And Magnavox's 20-inch TV with remote, only $299. Thursday through Saturday at all Macy's in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware.
We're at Macy's, and we're a part of your life.
A lot of accident claims never get a fair hearing because many people think you have to be rich to have a lawyer. But it can cost you plenty to settle your own claim, and you don't have to. At Hyatt Legal Services, we took the fear out of legal fees. Before you sign something you don't understand, come in and talk to one of our lawyers. We'll help you fight for what you're entitled to. I'm Joel Hyatt, and you have my word on it. We took the fear out of legal fees across the country and in your neighborhood.
Why right now is your best time to buy a new Toyota.
Trust. America's best-selling import 12 years running.
Right now, your Toyota dealer is making special year-end clearance deals.
3 options. Save up to $650 on limited edition trucks.
The dealers are feeling the heat. Thousands of Toyotas must be sold. The dealers can't wait to sell. You shouldn't wait to buy. With year-end clearance deals, you can't do better.
Fidelity Bank is proud to present our 6-month rising rate CD. Unlike some CDs, this little fella's interest rate is guaranteed to grow 0.25% every 6 months for up to 2 years. On the other hand, you can cash it in at the end of any 6-month term. So whether interest rates go up or down, it's a sure thing. The Fidelity Bank 6-month rising rate CD. How many guarantees like that do you get in your life?
Action News is brought to you by Le Coq Sportif.
Good morning, I'm Elliot Rodriguez. It's 72 degrees and cloudy on City Line Avenue right now. The AccuWeather forecast is coming up. In the news this morning, today's the day we've all been waiting for. 200 years ago, at exactly 4 o'clock this afternoon, our country's forefathers signed the U.S. Constitution, establishing the government and the laws we abide by today. Thousands of visitors are already in Philadelphia getting ready for the big event. And some of the people taking part in the Constitution Day Parade are getting in last-minute rehearsals. The parade begins at 9 o'clock this morning. You can head down to Center City, Philadelphia, or better yet, watch it live here on Channel 6. Dave Roberts and Lisa Thomas-Laurie will follow the action from the Ben Franklin Parkway. At Penn's Landing, the Great American Picnic begins at noon. President Reagan will be in town to give a speech, and you won't want to miss the big moment at 4 o'clock. Former Supreme Court Chief Justice Warren Burger will ring a replica of the Liberty Bell, setting off similar celebrations all over the nation. At night, a gala dinner and then a big fireworks show, and then the premiere of the Ben Franklin Bridge's brand new lights. Stay tuned to Channel 6 for complete Constitution Day coverage. We will begin broadcasting all the day's events live, starting with the parade at 9 o'clock this morning, and we'll be with you throughout the day. Yesterday, a unique event in the original chambers of the Supreme Court in Philadelphia. Chief Justices from the original 13 states held a convocation to honor both the Constitution and the judicial branch of government. The event was hosted by Robert N.C. Nix, Chief Justice of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. Organizers say this is the first time an event like this has been held. The Constitution has been signed all over again. It happened last night by the descendants of the men who did the honor the first time around. 600 descendants of the 39 signers poured into Philadelphia from all over the United States and abroad. One descendant of each signer will take part in today's Constitution Day festivities.
La vie est dure quand il faut choisir. Des jours, je me sens attirée par un genre sensible, doux et affectueux. Des jours par un genre viril, fort et dominant. Le sensible, le viril. Et moi, crazy. Mais pourquoi pas? Le coq sportif, le coq sportif, le coq sportif.
On the sports scene this morning, the Phillies put together the biggest inning of the season last night as they beat the Chicago Cubs 8-5. It happened in the 7th, and before it was over, the team put 7 runs on the board. The Phils sent 11 men to the plate and took advantage of 3 straight walks. Steve Bedrosian got the last out for his Major League leading 37th save of the season. The Eagles finally reached a contract agreement with holdout Roynell Young yesterday, and the quarterback will receive $2 million over the next 4 years. Coach Buddy Ryan says Young will start Sunday against the New Orleans Saints. Okay, checking the all-important forecast for Constitution Day. AccuWeather says a variable cloudiness with a shower this morning, unfortunately. 72 degrees. It's cloudy and dry right now on City Line Avenue. And then this afternoon, we'll have clouds, some sunshine. It'll be warm and humid. And unfortunately, again, there's a chance of a thunderstorm, so take an umbrella to the parade. The high, 82 degrees. And Action News continues at 8:25. I'm Elliot Rodriguez.
Come see us for Quality Plus. Low 1.9 financing or up to $1,000 cash bonus.
Quality.
Ford Bronco 2.
The Plus.
Low 1.9 financing or $1,000 cash bonus.
Quality.
Ford Ranger pickup.
The Plus.
1.9 financing or $1,000 cash bonus.
Quality.
Ford full-size pickups with manual transmission.
The Plus.
Get a $500 cash bonus.
Come see us for the Quality.
And get 1.9 financing or cash bonus. See your Quality Plus Ford dealer today.
The controversy of